The genres we will study. The genres we will study. I will define them as we go, but I just want you to have them in front of you, okay? This is all part of organizing your brains before I talk about it. The sacred genres we will study, the Mass and the motet. Okay? The secular genres we will study, the chanson, which simply means song in French, Italian madrigal, and English madrigal. Okay? Please know also that at the end, the very tail end of the Renaissance, we're going to see the world of opera pop up. Here comes the O word, right? And we'll also certainly see that instrumental music will be on the rise very quickly and will boom, I mean explode, in the Baroque period. Okay, composers we will study. You could spend an entire year studying the composers of the Renaissance. An entire year. And I have to cut it down to 3. Lucky me. Actually, there are 4, but the last one isn't that important. I'm separating this Renaissance, these 200 years, into 3 composers. The first composer, Guillaume Dufay, 1400 to 1474. The Middle Renaissance, Josquin des Prés, actually, you don't have to know that, just know him by Josquin. 1440 to 1521, he makes it to the split of the church. And the Late Renaissance, Palestrina, 1525 to 1594. And we're going to see what they take from each other and how individual they are as well. You know, Mozart learned a lot from Haydn, and Beethoven learned a lot from Mozart and Haydn. You'll see how composers give and take from each other. It's a very interesting process, and these guys are no exception. Okay. First, Dufay. There is no listening example for Dufay, nor does your book even mention Dufay. But I feel it necessary because some of his music is it will give us a very good example of how these composers were getting away with a lot inside the church. Dufay, like other composers, composed both sacred and secular music. He was from a group of composers called the Burgundian composers, the Burgundian school, okay, from northeastern France. And what's so interesting about Dufay is he takes from what the Ars Nova gives him, from composers like Machot, but he certainly gives us some new pathways. And a couple things that he does with his music is he uses the concept of imitation. This is something we're going to talk about for a long time, this idea of imitation. And just think about imitation as me imitating you, right? If a line of music imitates a line of music, one line of music is doing what the other line of music does, right? So this idea of imitation is going to be kind of cool. If you have a beautiful melody, why not repeat it? But something that Dufay did, I think, is very interesting. Let's say it's now. And I take something like, oops, I did it again, da-da-da-dee-da, right? What's her name? Britney Spears? Yeah. Let's say I took something real popular. Do you know who Britney Spears is, ma'am? Okay, just checking.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Just think of that Pepsi commercial. Of course, people are going to see this in 10 years and go, oh. Or actually, they'll see it next year and go, oh. I'm going to get calls. All right. All right. Let's say it's that. Or let's say it's Mary Had a Little Lamb. Let's go there with that. Now, you show up on Sunday to St. Agnes Cathedral, just because you want to. Whether you're Catholic or not, doesn't matter. Church is always a lovely thing, no matter what religion you are, if you choose to go. And I'll stop there. Now, let's say we're listening to a choir, and we're listening to a Mass. And the Mass is called Mary Had a Little Lamb Mass. And we go to this first movement. The first movement is called Kyrie. And this is what we hear. Kyrie eleison, 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 Kyrie eleison, eleison, Kyrie. I don't know. Okay, I have taken a popular tune and I have put it in the Mass, but I have disguised it so you can't hear it because it's Kyrie, right? Nobody heard it. Now you take a Britney Spears song, whoops, I did it again, put it in the Agnus Dei or something, and it'll be Misa, oops, I did it again. All right? That would be the Mass you'd hear. That's what Dufay did. That's what he did. So he'd take a song, one of the most amazing songs in the top 40 of 1420 something was called The Armed Man. It's about a soldier. Well, all of a sudden he comes up with Misa l'Homme Armé. And so people were walking into church listening to this. Do you think they were fooled? Absolutely not. Nobody was looking, though. Experiment, experiment, experiment. Let's take these lovely songs, and some of which Dufay composed himself. He composed what are called Shun Songs. Okay? Shun Songs. Not only did he compose secular music, he composed sacred music. Not only did he compose sacred, he composed secular as well. Chanson, which is simply the French secular song. Okay? French secular song. And there were a lot of advancements made in music from this chanson. And Dufay did a lot for it. Knew how to combine those voices and did a lot for the development of the chanson. Now, let's say he wrote one. I really like my chanson. I think I'll write a Mass based on my chanson. And so he did. And there it was in church on that Sunday. So this is quite amazing. It really was. Okay? Now we go to the Middle Renaissance, and we go to a composer by the name of Josquin des Près, died 1521, the master of the Renaissance. One of my favorite composer, often compared to the likes of Beethoven. So Dufay was the Burgundian from Burgundy, and Josquin des Près from the Franco-Flemish school, the Franco-Flemish school. Okay, up there by France and Belgium and Netherlands. He was one of the most expressive composers, and that's why we compare him to Beethoven, because Beethoven's music is certainly an achievement in expression. And same thing with Josquin. He used large choirs. Every once in a while, in Josquin's music, whether it's a modern recording or not, it sounds like there are dynamics, because he's really doing interesting things within the music. For example, let's say we have a 4-voice Kyrie or something. He would take the 2 top voices, the 2 higher voices, and let them go along by themselves, with the 2 lower voices resting. And then the 2 lower voices come in without the top. So he's mixing up what is going on in the music, which makes it more interesting. He also experiments with phrases. We hear clear-cut phrases, we hear imitation, paired duets. He had a great influence on other composers, and that's why he's got to have historical importance, because he influenced everybody to come. He spent much of his life in Italy, very well-traveled composer. He worked for Louis XII in France, and he had major church positions as well. He was definitely a Renaissance man. He composed, and I'm getting boring here, he composed sacred and secular music. Another interesting point about his music that I'm missing here is range, vocal range. Vocal range expanded. Meaning, you'll hear higher sopranos, lower basses, and so the pitch range has really expanded. Therefore, you're going to hear more expression. You'll hear the highs and the lows, okay? And the best way to understand Josquin is just to bathe in it. And the example is a motet called Ave Maria Virgo Serena. And before I go on, I need to define motet for you. And this is it's a little difficult musical animal to try to figure out. A motet is a piece of music that is set to a sacred, not a scared, sacred Latin text other than the ordinary of the Mass. So if it's not a Kyrie, Gloria, Sanctus, Agnus Dei, it's probably a motet, but you guys aren't going to have to figure that out. I'm defining it for you only because that's what we're listening to. And I will not ever say to you, this is a motet, and have you try to figure that out. Will you be tested on what a motet is? No, that's a little above and beyond the call of the music appreciator. But I do want you to know what you're listening to. So don't blame me for that, okay? Just don't blame me because I'm beautiful, all right? So this is a motet, and again, this is a beautiful, beautiful piece of music for 4 voices, written in 1502, Ave Maria Virgo Serena. And the text reads like this. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, serene Virgin. Hail, whose conception full of great jubilation fills heaven and earth with new joy. Hail, whose birth brought us joy, as Lucifer, the morning star, went before the true sun. Hail, pious humility, fruitful without a man, whose annunciation brought us salvation. Hail, true virginity, immaculate chastity, whose purification brought our cleansing. Hail, glorious one in all angelic virtues, whose assumption was our glorification. O Mother of God, remember me. Amen. This is a very beautiful 4-voice motet. It is a Latin prayer to the Virgin set to a very wonderful, delicate, and serene music. I hope you enjoy this. This is really, we're getting into a new area of expression. And it's very hard as a teacher to say, please feel. I can't make you feel. But this is at a point where you should really try very hard to connect, because it will be to your advantage. This is Josquin. Was Ave Maria Virgo Serena, 1502. 15 years later, we have the split of the church. Right? Martin Luther makes his speeches, and we have the actual split of the church. And so it's up to the Catholics to try to come back and save their church, and they do this. And there was an important series of meetings between 1545 and 1563, very important historical series of meetings called the Council of Trent, okay? The Council of Trent. And what this series of one of the parts, I should say, in this series of meetings was music, you know? Music was getting too loud, it was getting too expressive. We were going far away from the spirit of worship. We need to get back to that. No more noisy instruments, no more theatrical singing like you just heard. No more secular tunes. The popes knew, we knew what was going on. We knew what those tunes were. None of this complex polyphony that we couldn't figure out anymore. Okay, so they did this, hence the Counter-Reformation. Now, what we needed was a composer to come along to abide by the rules set down by the Council of Trent. Okay? And here he was, Palestrina. Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina, who devoted himself to the music for the Catholic Church. His career, of course, then, centered in Rome. His repertoire, his output, sacred. He composed 104 masses, 450 other sacred works. Again, I use the word with a capital S, sacred. He worked at St. Peter's in Rome. And so Palestrina's music is going to reflect restraint. It is going to have a calmness. It's going to have an otherworldly quality. We're going to go back to that sound, that spirituality of Gregorian chant. Does that mean we're going back to monophonic music? Oh God, no. I've spent way too much time talking about this. No, of course not. We're going to stay with that polyphonic sound, but we're going to make it spiritual. We're not going to go backwards technically, but we're going to go back to the spirit of worship. And so he did. His music is seamless and it is perfectly crafted. He was one of the great craftsmen. And if you are in music school, you must take a course that's called 16th Century Counterpoint. And he's the first guy you're going to go to look at how that music was constructed. And it is fascinating how he did this. And he was amazing. So we have small choir, we have this seamless quality. It's very gorgeous music. It lifts you up. It's like riding on air. There aren't any holes. Remember that sound of Gregorian chant? Okay? So his output sacred, and the example that I have for you is from the Pope Marcellus Mass. The Pope Marcellus Mass, which was written in 1562. And get this, it's in 6 voices. Well, how is that rooting out any abuse? That's more people. Well, he did it really well. 6 voices, curved melodies, very Gregorian in character, certainly. And this is very, very beautiful music. And I hope you enjoy it. So listen to that seamless character. Tell me if you think we've gone back to the spirit of worship. The movement you will hear is the Kyrie movement. See, there's that word again. Remember the text? Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. Palestrina, that is written for a cappella singers, 2 sopranos, 2 tenors, 2 basses. And so it's a very interesting emphasis on a cappella singing. And speaking of a cappella singing, let's go to the secular music of the Renaissance one more time, because there's certainly an interesting development going on, and that is the Italian madrigal. And that Italian madrigal is going to be stolen from the English. In the very early 16th century, we had a boom of wonderful Italian poetry, right? And because of word printing, now they can get out to the public fairly quickly. Thousands of madrigals, which is, by the way, if you want the definition of a madrigal, it's a vocal piece of music, usually set to a poem. Okay, it's not very specific. Most of them are about love and war and politics, same sort of thing as before, but they are much more dramatic in the way they are sung. Italian madrigals are not meant to be not meant to be sung without anybody listening. They are pieces of music that are beautifully crafted, and now this a cappella singing is giving us so much that you want to sit down and you want to really listen to them. The Italian madrigal, we can also call a forerunner to opera because of the emphasis on this very beautiful, difficult singing. Let's add some drama, let's add some scenery, let's add some dancing. Hence, we're going to see the full drama coming at us very quickly as we go to the Baroque period. And so the madrigal is very, very important. In 1588, a volume of translated Italian madrigals was published in London. Hence, we have the birth of the English madrigal. The English madrigals are very different. The Italian madrigals, if you just think about Italians, you know, oh my goodness, emotion, emotion, emotion. And that's exactly the way these madrigals are. They are dramatic. You know, they are dramatic. They're about very dramatic things. But the English, very different. These are very light, very humorous, and very rhythmic. Very different. And so we are going to hear an English madrigal because you know what? We haven't heard English in a while, you know? So I thought, let's not go with the Italian, let's go with the English. And here we go. Thomas Morley, composer of many English madrigals. And here we have, now is the month of Maying. And you will see that these madrigals are very bouncy. Now is the month of Maying when merry lads are playing. Fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la. Okay? Each with his bonny lass upon the greeny grass, the spring clad, all in gladness, doth laugh at winter sadness, and to the bagpipe sound the nymphs tread out their ground. Fie then, why we sit musing, youth's delight refusing, say, dainty nymphs, and speak, shall we play barley break, fa la la. Okay? This is a wonderful, wonderful piece of music, exciting, rhythmic, and it is not supposed to make you sad or dramatic or give you this inner need to look in within yourself. No, no, no. This is just fun. Okay? Thomas Morley, Now is the Month of Maying. This is an English madrigal.
Now is the month of May when merry lads are playing. La 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 la, la 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 la. Now is the month of May when merry lads are playing. La 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 la, la 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 la. Each with his bonny lass upon the green.
So, English madrigal, very, very, very enjoyable. That was by Thomas Morley. And in your book it says ballot, and that is very similar to the madrigal. But this is technically a ballot. Again, very similar to the madrigal, same kind of feeling, okay? So English madrigals are different. They're very humorous, much lighter. The Italian madrigals are much more brooding, as we'll see. Certainly we're going to come to Italy, back to Italy fairly quickly with the development of opera. And so now it is time for test number 1. So you have your study guides, you have your listening guides. Please go over it, and I will see you at the test. Bye.